Welcome to the Disco Domes, the ultimate place to connect with music and nature in Texas.
If you're in San Antonio or Austin, we're just an hour drive, and you can come enjoy the beautiful hill country of Texas, very unique views, and come down the night away or come just be quiet and enjoy nature.
So we have arrived. That was a boring drive from Houston to here, but I must say what I told you when we met, that I'm speechless. And you know, and people who are watching probably know as well, that it barely happens. It's just spectacular. What you guys did here, it's taking my breath away. But what I know, because it's not the first meeting that we have, we had a chance to meet at the glamping show, and I know that you're not, both of you are originally from Texas. I know, Andres, that you're from New York, but no New York.
I'm what I usually say, I'm half Colombian, half New Yorker, just because I grew up in Colombia, but I lived for a long time in New York.
Okay.
In the hospitality and nightlife world, so that's kind of like always in the back of my head and on my background.
So, New York versus Texas. Well, this is a change.
Quite a change.
Quite a change. Why? Was it love?
Yeah, it was. It was love and family mainly.
Okay.
To be honest, we met in New York, and we spent about 6 or so years together in New York.
Okay.
And once we started a family, we decided to leave the dirty city, if you will. We didn't want the baby to be walking around all the dirty
The first time I got on a subway with a baby, I was like, no, this isn't going to work for me.
So it was mainly that family. We wanted to grow our family, and we wanted to do it in a more relaxed environment. So we left.
And Texas was the first choice, or did you consider other states?
We considered, we had family in Texas and Colombia, and so I wanted to go to Colombia, but he was not interested in going back to Colombia. And we thought about Oregon a little bit.
California,
I didn't really want to come
maybe.
back home. I had left home and I didn't want to go back, but when you have a baby, any free help and any support is golden. So
True.
then it came down to Texas, and yeah, that's how we landed here. We went to San Antonio because that's where I was from and where my mom was at.
Yeah, we were in San Antonio for 2 or 3 years before we moved out here.
Okay, so like New York, the decision about moving to Texas, San Antonio, and then how did you come up with the idea of the ranch and the domes? Was the land first, or was the idea first? What?
It's a little combination of both. We moved here before the pandemic happened. We bought the land because I was pregnant with a second boy, and I just wanted space. And we originally just wanted to go a little outside of San Antonio, but I just didn't find any land or property that was speaking to me. So I kind of widened the circle, and then I found this property. It was for sale by owner, and it was an hour from San Antonio. But we came to view it, and just something happened, you know. It just was the most spectacular piece of land we had ever seen, and I just knew instantly that I wanted it. And my son actually held hands with the owner that was walking us around the property.
Because he felt the same.
He felt
clearly.
the same. And it was a very hot property. The man was like, I'm selling it at the end of the week to the highest bidder. And it was actually a pretty amazing story, because we ended up submitting an offer for less than asking because it was too much for us. And our realtor said, just send a cover letter, tell the person why you want it. And he ended up taking our offer even though it wasn't the highest. And he said it was because our son, he held his hand.
Oh,
So
and
we
this
had
is
a real
again like the
special
land,
bond with the property,
kind of the land chose you.
Yeah, I would
And
say.
you chose the land.
Yeah.
So the land was empty, or were there any buildings on the land that
So
you converted into the accommodation?
We have a main house, and that's a nice, beautiful A-frame that has a really cool, interesting charm to it as well. And then there was a guest house, and so our thought was that we would just turn both of them into rentals, and then we'd come out here maybe on the weekends. But then through the renovation process, we were having so many magical nights here and spending time under the stars, and just started to kind of hate the city more and more. So then we moved in to the big house while we were fixing the guest house. And so we started short-term rental, made that a short-term rental. And that's kind of where we got a feel of what it was like to run a short-term rental in this area, the demand, that sort of thing. And we were really enjoying it. And it was booked at, you know, it was booked 100% of the time, year-round. Yeah, it did really, really well. And so when the pandemic happened, I always envisioned, actually, there was a teepee on the property when we bought it. And I envisioned teepees being scattered around the property. And I guess this land was once occupied by the Lipan Apaches. Yeah, so I love that idea. And actually it's bringing back memories that I had totally forgotten about. And at one point someone was selling some teepees. That's
right,
we went to see them. We asked her a bunch of questions. She was a young 25-year-old operating her own little teepee glamping business. And when she started explaining some of the things she had to do and the maintenance, and we kind of went, okay, no.
No teepees.
Teepees are out. But I was still thinking it would be nice to have more accommodations on the property. And we have an Airstream DJ booth as our primary business, and we do outdoor dance parties, and we clearly like round things, and we like the 70s. So I feel like it was just this kind of natural attraction to a round dome.
Yeah, we had this aha moment where like, oh my god, what about domes? That would be amazing. There's no domes in Texas. We could be the first domes in Texas.
Okay, so the idea is from the shape that you, and the disco dome.
Yeah.
This is a unique name. And tell us, because not everybody knows, I already know, what's the idea behind the name? Because it's not only the name, it's all the experience. What is disco dome?
Well, what's the best way to describe that?
I'll tell you kind of like the elements that created that, and you can refine the answer. But as you mentioned, our primarily business is outdoor events. And when we moved to Texas, coming from New York, one of our biggest loves was dancing outside. Every summer, there's so many events, so many parties outside, so many DJs playing outdoors. And when we moved to Texas, that didn't exist. So we created that business, and it did really, really well. And we became the people that
became a big part of our identity.
Yeah, we became the people that brought outdoor dancing in the daytime to San Antonio. So we always want to grow that aspect of being anywhere we are. And then back to being here at the property, back to that aha moment of the domes. So all those elements were there. All the background we have in hospitality and the great experience we had hosting the first short-term rental. So all the elements, all the ingredients were there for the recipe, if you will. But then, yeah, I'll let you.
Yeah, I just think that first business was covered in disco balls. We love disco light. We feel that there's nothing more just classic and simple and beautiful than the light of a disco ball. And 70s, for me, is one of my favorite times of favorite eras. We love disco music. We kind of believe nothing really sounds better outdoors than disco and house, and there's just a real love of those things. And when we imagine putting a disco ball right at the top of the dome, it just really spoke to us. And then we wanted to be able to have DJs make curated mixes that were, because we believe that there's music that enhances nature and music that kind of clashes with nature. And when you pair that right music with being outside in the right space, it's just, there's nothing like it. So I think that became really the heart of the brand, is how do we give people, it's not about going to some remote place and being in nature. It's also a spa-like experience where you can connect with water, fire, music is the sound, lights of the disco ball. It's just a very sensory experience, a sensual sensory experience. And that's kind of what we're striving to provide and what we made here.
So there are open air parties on the property. Do you organize, you throw the parties like with dancing outside here on the property?
Yes. Same with once the pandemic happened, all our event business stopped clearly. So we brought the party to us, and we started hosting parties here. We brought our Airstream, and we'll park in the middle of the property, and people be social distanced, but partying outside, and that grew from there. We started bringing the people here. A funny thing about the dome is that when we were in construction of the dome, we were still hosting those parties, and before any furniture or anything was in the dome, we just had the floors and like the frame of the counter. So I would bring my DJ equipment and speakers, and we will have the after parties in the dome.
They were properly
And
christened
they were
with really great dance parties. before the
Amazing
DJ
dance
wall
parties. We had like 50
accommodations.
people dancing inside the dome with the disco ball and the sound system. So
And
they
that's
were-
kind of where we learned the power of sound inside
In
of
the
the dome
sound.
as well. And then we became very enamored with, well, what sound are we going to put in it? And how can we amplify a sound experience? And even now, we're still going on that journey and going, okay, well, let's evolve from just music. It's a sound experience. What if after you bath, you come in, you hear something super tranquil
Yeah.
or high vibrational, just you lay in bed, you turn on the blue light, and you just...
And you get a sound bath. So we're incorporating more health-driven elements as well as we move along and give people the full spectrum of options. You can come for a sound bath or come dance the night away.
Yeah, but it's still kind of affecting you. I know that the round shape and geodesic dome is very good for the energy as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And as we discussed, you decided not to put the bathroom inside. The bathroom is outside that we will take a walk later on. But thanks to it, even the music and the whole vibe in the dome is completely different, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we and that's glad you mentioned that. Like we're very driven by the experience of someone coming and enjoying all the spaces we created. So for us, it was a huge clash to come into this beautiful dome and have all these walls blocking the view, connecting with each other across the dome, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to create this like oasis and this like full sensory experience when you're in the dome and feel like you're in this bubble that has an incredible view at the same time. So that's why we decided to put everything else outside and keep this very clean, open, and it also makes it look very sexy when it's open, which adds to the experience as well.
Yeah, I feel amazing here when I sit here. It's like this vibe, but also you guys, you create the atmosphere. So the experience comes from the heart, and you can tell that you just put your heart out there to this location. How hard was it to set up the domes in Texas? Like we know, like all over the states, like New York is a nightmare. Then we have Colorado, we have clients there, a lot of permissions. How about Texas? Was it easy, or did you have to go through very hard permission process?
It wasn't. What's interesting and a little bit, and we got very lucky too, is that we started everything kind of through that pandemic period. So everything was so lax because there was all this help, and the government was kind of turning a blind eye of a lot of the process that was the normal process. So we were very lucky that we funneled into that, and we didn't have to jump through a lot of loops to get to where we wanted to be. We're also pretty remote, and Texas is a double-edged sword, but it's great that if you're outside of the city limits, there's a lot less regulations as well. So we were able to bypass a lot of that permitting nightmare that everybody runs into.
We also weren't starting from scratch, right? And we weren't having a big operation. So I think that made it a lot easier for us because we had electricity on the property. We didn't have to get a permit for that electricity. We didn't have to get a permit for a septic. We actually started with waste burning toilets to avoid the septic permit. So we were dancing around some of those things that would have been necessary had you been starting with nothing. And so we didn't run into a whole lot of issues. I know when you have a certain amount of overnight guests in Texas, then you need a bigger system or you need special permitting. And we were lucky that outside of city limits, those lists of permits that you need, we didn't really need for what we were doing. And then the one that we did need, for example, the septic, and we weren't at a place to do it, we said, well, we'll put the waste burning toilet, we just kind of worked around it, I guess, to be able to get started. And now we've since put in a septic because that didn't go so well. But we did it in a not the standard order, I guess, I wouldn't be able to speak to how hard it is when somebody wants to have 10 and start from the ground up and needs to get more permitting than we have.
And a lot of it is what you said, right? We were almost grandfathered into a lot of the permitting because there was a structure, because there was already a house and all the permits have been approved here already. There was an extra structure that we were renting and that was already permitted. So a lot of it was just a grandfather extension of what we have,
Okay.
which was a lot easier
It's
than
easier.
starting from a raw
From
land.
zero, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And even how they classify maybe a vacation rental versus
Okay.
a full commercial business is different. So when something's an investment property or a vacation rental or a temporary, it's just seen differently. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's been, I
We
know
got very
Texas
lucky,
is
I would say
easier
that.
than a lot of
It's
other
easier,
states.
right? Yeah.
I will say that from other people we've heard from experiences around Texas, it's definitely easier around Texas outside of city limits than other states.
Yeah.
And so you knew that you will be able to set up the domes. You had the property running. You had the idea, and you decided to order the domes from Poland. So the domes arrive. And what is the reaction? What is the energy? Are you like, oh my God, it looks like IKEA? Or, oh my God, I'm not going to do it? Or what? Do you remember? Can you recall the feeling you had when the
yeah.
parcels actually arrived at the property?
Oh no, every step of the way. Like even you know, like you said, like we didn't know you guys within the company, and you have so much trust putting all your savings into this order, and we're like, oh my God, I hope it's real. I hope they come.
We don't have
Hope they
backgrounds in
exist.
construction or any of these things, right? It's important to note that we're like
we're done.
sublet apartments in New York City and never had to really fix things ourselves or do any of this work. So it was definitely
Very new.
very new, and something really sweet is Andres's parents came from Colombia, and it took
Oh.
forever to get here because of the pandemic and flight restrictions, and I feel like they finally got here. It was this really sweet incubator time where we got to all be together, and Andres and his father worked so much on the bathroom designs, and they were here helping us. So the day it arrived, we got to really celebrate with family. My mom is here, his parents are here, so it was a really sweet moment the day they arrived, and it was mostly family helping us assemble the frame, and we got to go through the process with family, and it was really, really exciting.
Yeah, even the kids were involved in plumbing, and they were helping me with holding the tools or what have you.
There was
It
no
was very-
school, so we're just all in it
It's very
together.
sweet.
It was a really
It's so touching that
sweet
you were
time.
like really setting it up, not with the construction team, but yourselves. So it makes
Yeah, and again, because we did it through the pandemic, it was near impossible to get anyone to do anything, especially when you're a small operation. If we were a much bigger operation, then there were other bigger contractors that would be interested, but because we were so small, no one had time.
Yeah.
Well, we have war stories for another, interview about our process of just doing
So
anything through the
we
pandemic,
ended-
right?
yeah, we ended
and
up doing a
epic
lot.
freezes, and at plumbing time, we had an epic freeze, and tons of people
God.
were out of water, and they didn't have running water, so plumbers would go, "Do you have running water? Okay, call me in 2 months." And we're like, "Oh God." So we were having to learn how to run plumbing. We were having to learn how to do a lot of things ourselves, and those really cool bathrooms were made by us.
Yeah.
yeah, the bathrooms are.
Center block by center block
we
with
did it
Indeed,
all.
no
cool.
clue what we.
I wouldn't say it's like so nice to learn that you actually build it with your bare hands.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Not only the domes, because this is like the large IKEA, like with all,
Yeah.
but the bathrooms and everything around. If you were to go through this process all over again, creating this domes, let's focus on domes because we are FDomes. So. Would you go with FDomes again? Like, would you decide on the domes from Poland again, or would you rather find something to be easier and not wait so much? Or is it like, no, if we were to order new domes, it would be...
No, to be honest, a lot of the other comparable domes we've seen, and we've stayed at a number of competitors and a number of different types of companies that are doing dome accommodations, and FDome stands out. Like, quality-wise, honestly, like the materials that you use. I'm talking about the design when it arrived and how everything is packed and all the. I love all the big bags. I still use them for other things.
Recycling.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything it just shows the amount of professionalism and quality that you're buying. And yes, it's gonna take longer, but if you want it fast and cheap, then you're gonna get something cheap, and it shows. So yeah, I think if we were gonna do it again, we would probably design things a little bit different to be able to grow and maybe have more, or maybe a different land or what have you. But if we were gonna do domes, yeah, I would definitely do FDomes again.
Ah, that's a relief.
Yeah,
At the end.
it was a great experience, even from the ordering process compared to other. I mean, part of the reason we went with FDomes was when you don't know what's going to arrive and you're just looking at pictures and you can't touch them, you can't see them. I mean, now we have the glamping expo where we can go see them, but at that time we didn't know about a glamping expo.
Yeah, it was a pandemic.
It was super nerve-wracking to spend that kind of money on something you can't touch and feel and see in person. And at the time there were no other domes, so you couldn't tell us, well, go check out an FDome over in another part of Texas. And what I loved about your platform is the way you could really, I remember being able to design it, seeing the door here. I mean, I really do feel like your company was leagues above the rest in just what I had control over and what I could see and manipulate on my own before ordering. And the support that we got from you and that we continue to get when we have problems is really great. And being able to bump into you at glamping expos, I mean, it feels much more personal and it's,
like a partnership.
Really nice.
I was gonna say, it almost feels like a partnership where like you know, I remember through the process, like you would be calling me more, checking if everything was working out, and we were just overwhelmed and busy. So it really felt like a really good partnership to be able to work with you.
And this is how we ended up here, even having this discussion and you hosting us for what we thank you so much. I think that's it. We are done. Thank you so much again. And we are looking forward to stay here and hopefully meeting no Scorpios. Hopefully, but who knows? It's an experience.
Live ones,
okay.
I think I can guarantee that. If you see one, it won't be alive.
Perfect. So let's take a walk around and see and reveal more details about the disco domes as well to the audience.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.